1996. This is a crop glyph. You can see calling them crop circles because it's clearly not a circular structure except for the thing that this alien's holding. But it appeared in 2002, August 14th, outside of Winchester, England. And the photographer, Lucy Pringle, had also interviewed some folks who lived near this strange feature that showed up in a wheat field right around harvest time. And they had witnessed lights swirling around and then zooming into the sky, and also strange pulsing noises that they assumed were a generator or maybe a helicopter. But this feature is huge. It's about 390 feet tall by 240 feet wide. And the circular feature that this alien gray is holding, this watcher is holding, is about 100 feet across. You can see the tractor lines here, the little roadway, and you can get some idea of the scale. What's amazing about this feature is its similarity to the ultratext symbol that my brother had put up on my site. I thought it was significant, although I had some reservations, because I want to keep a mind that isn't delusional. And I decided that maybe I would put it aside and wait till some inspiration hit me if it actually did have some merit with my research. Although now I'm finding that it does, and it surely did. Here's some folks walking around in the disk, as you can see here. This thing, they're walking around and studying it. And it actually has some remarkable features. It was actually a readable code in the disk. It was called ASCII text. And that just stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. It was an American code developed in the late 60s. What happens with this code is it's a system of binary, 8 digits, zeros or ones, which make one symbol, and it's all correlated to a keyboard for a computer. So if you type A, it'll be 00110, something like that. It depends on what the letter is. That's what this code had in it. There were 26 words in this message, and you can see the actual message was decoded rather rapidly after this crop circle showed up. It's distinctive because it's so innocuous and vague. It says, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe. There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing, bell sound." That's as far as this understanding of this crop circle went. The researchers who looked into it decided that there was nothing that said it was a fake or that it had the man-made features. It had all the bona fide hallmarks of an actual crop circle as defined by cereologists, the guys who've actually coined this study, cereology. They've actually pioneered studies of how these grains, these stalks of grain are laid out, how you can actually examine them microscopically and find that the nodes that the plant have been exploded. They can be laid down in weaved patterns. There's so many things about this crop circle that were right on the mark for the real phenomena that most researchers were baffled. They said, okay, if this really is an alien communication, why would they use American Standard Code? Why would they use American text? Why would they put out such a cliche picture? It just seems a little bit far-fetched, and so it was just kind of left alone. And there is more to it. In fact, there's so much to this that I think you could exhaust years studying it, and you wouldn't end your discoveries. For example, the most basic thing is there are actually 59 lines of horizontal resolution in the picture. And I counted them out very meticulously, but I've also verified this with other sites. that have worked on this. 59 lines of resolution, and as you can see, the alien is holding this disc so that it's bisected along the exterior of his frame. So I thought that perhaps he was indicating that we should count the lines along that frame, in which I did, meticulously numbering to 33, which is a significant number if you know about illuminated fraternities and their rank. And what is this all going to lead to? It begged an equation. I realized really quickly that 59 minus 33 equals 26, which interestingly relates to the number of words that are in the disk itself. Also, 26 is the number of letters in our English alphabet. But if you multiply these two numbers together, I wonder if anybody can see where I'm going with this. Does anyone not know when the Roswell event happened? That's right, 1947. Later, when I recovered from my shock, I realized that 33% of 59 is 19.47, the hallmark signature of tetrahedral geometry that Holden talks about in the Martian Cydonia region over and over and over again. And I think the correlation between these two numbers is obvious here with the integers that we have set up in the crop circle. Now, there's more to it than that. Now, I was talking about the ASCII code having letters. It represents letters, spaces, numbers. So in the 26-word message, there were 151 ASCII characters. And I made sure that that was correct too. It took me quite a while because I realized once I had pegged what this number was and it was wrong, I would be led in the wrong direction. But something that's very interesting is all these equations, as you're going to see, are hinged on that number. So you have 151 times 33. You get 4,983. It's Roswellian. It's exactly the distance in miles along the curvature of the Earth from the latitude and longitude of where this crop circle showed up outside Winchester, England, and the actual crash sites of the Roswell incident. And for those skeptics out there, I actually plugged it into a program on the web that you can actually do these things with, and I kept, of course, almost a holistic idea of this idea of 33 repeated over and over again. And then, in fact, if you look at the historical traditional site of the Roswell crashes, it is centered along the 33rd.33 latitude mark in Roswell, New Mexico. Now, if you can take those two numbers again and add them, still using 33, you come up to 184. Which is exactly the number of days in a year before you hit July 4th. And even on a leap year, you're still going to end up the day before. And there's been conjecture when the actual crash event took place. It allows for this. There's a little 24-hour section here where it ends and then the 4th begins. Now, as there was 151 characters in this code, 26 words, each character has 8 bits of information in it. That equals 1,208 bits of ASCII code. That's significant too, because there's exactly 1,208 miles from the latitude of the crop circle to 33.33 degrees latitude of Roswell. And then I also plugged it in here so you can see that there's a little room for error. I didn't know exactly the coordinates outside of Winchester, England, and I had a pretty good idea where the crash site is northwest of Roswell. As you can see, it's very, very tight. Now here's a piece de resistance. As a segue, the Europeans are mostly more open than the American press when they look at this phenomena. We have oftentimes media blackouts for spectacular things like this. I don't think this was ever shown in the year 2000 in any mainstream media in America. But this is all over the place in France and England. They didn't have any bias. But as soon as they found out that this text was in English, they dropped it. But Roswell's in America. And we speak English here primarily, so I can see what's going on. But it's interesting. In my grade school geometry class, I remember something like this. It was because it was the function of pi. It was a geometric representation of the function of pi. And pi is really a simple thing. It's a wonderful number, 3.14159265. I'm proud because I memorized it to the 8th decimal point. But anyway, you got this line here, which is actually bisecting the circle. Now, if you know the distance here, you multiply that times pi, and you get the circumference. Or if you know the circumference, but not the diameter, you divide pi by this, and you'll get this. So it's a wonderful number. You can actually find the area of a circle also, but I won't get into that. What it looks like is this alien is saying, this watcher is saying, why don't you solve for pi? Well, I already knew this was 100 feet long. So the result would be just move the decimal places over to the right, two spaces, 314 feet, 0.15 feet then, the circumference. But that's not the integers that we're using. It's not the actual measuring system that we're using. There's 33 lines along here. So what happens then if you would multiply 33 with pi? In fact, I started thinking maybe it was referring to the cross site at Roswell because all these other equations pointed to Roswell so eloquently. So I actually multiplied pi times 33.33. And you can see 33.33 here is a crash site latitude. And what you get is the crash site longitude. Now this is in decimal. There's two different ways of measuring latitude and longitude. One is with arc minutes and seconds, and one is with decimal like this is. But the coordinates are so exact that when I plug this into my Map-O-Rama location finder, I actually ended up within a 50-mile radius of almost all the major crash site, at least the legendary areas, the traditional areas of the crash site for the 1947 event. There's the city of Roswell. You are here. In fact, this whole idea of Roswell's latitude dividing into its longitude equaling pi is one of the main reasons why the Roswell event happened in this location. I've heard a lot of conjecture over why the crash ended up here. Accident, our nuclear technology, perhaps our radar station, something that no one really knows because it was top secret and hasn't been released yet. It's all part of a bigger plan. It's a part of a plan to educate mankind. And these guys have been around for a long time, the Watchers. It's so accurate, in fact, that if you are to calculate the latitude and longitude divided into each other, you can actually draw out pi lines, which almost look like aircraft flight paths. And I was very curious about this. I had my brother actually go to his map program and plot these lines, and he ended up getting this configuration. And the reason is 33.33 is through here. If you're measuring in arc seconds, they end at 60 degrees, so you're going to have to jump to do the next calculation. So there's only two lines that are that long. This one represents the digital line. This is a 33.33 line. And this is a map of the traditional crash sites. There have been speculation over which ones are authentic and which ones aren't. And this is by no means a real accurate map, but the general placement of these things is here. And this is the site the area that I want to focus on, because this is where the